We are going to be working with in the pop art style for this next project, and what that means is we're going to be dealing with stuff that's in popular culture. All right, so kind of the father of pop art was Andy Warhol, who started to do his work in the early 60s. Got famous doing stuff with the Campbell soup cans, where they were done significantly larger. So if that's part of pop art, is taking everyday objects, making them larger than what they need to be for just kind of an aesthetic purpose and an artistic twist, if you will. Some of the cans were just a straight up can to where it looked exactly like what it really was. Some of them were done to where the label was peeling off, or some of them were done where he stacked several of them on top of each other and repeated the same image over and over and over again. And then he used the Del Monte cans as well, and just kind of a variety of things. Okay, and some of them were chicken soup, some of them were beans. It's just a variety of different types of cans. So another artist that dealt with kind of things that we see in every day was Roy Lichtenstein, where he kind of drew and did some sculptural stuff kind of in the comic book style, to where you would take your standard image that's 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 inches and make them significantly larger, like feet. There was a show a couple years back at the Art Institute in Chicago, and this piece was there. It pretty much took up the entire wall. They're 8 feet high, and the whole thing was probably 30 feet long. It's ridiculously big, but done in this style where you can see all of everything was made up with the little dots. So the guy that we're going to kind of focus on is Klaus Oldenburg, to where he did stuff to where he took everyday objects like this stove here and built the food to be as part of the artwork and kind of made it as an installation. So with this particular one, which is called The Stove with Meats, not a very creative title, but it is what it is. Okay? The food is made with burlap, and it was soaked in plaster to help keep the shape of it, and then it was painted with enamel paints, and that's kind of where the shine comes from. Okay? A lot of the pop artists were interesting people. They kind of looked at things a little bit differently. Did some stuff with clothing and with other everyday type of items, like this payphone here that was made out of vinyl, so it was all sewn together. Did a whole installation here to where you can see there's a piece of cake back here, so that's probably 4 feet high by about 6 feet long. There's an ice cream cone that's laying on its side. So there's a lot of stuff done very large. There is it's called Lipstick Monument. It's got caterpillar tracks, like tank tracks, and then it's got a giant lipstick on top of it. Okay, so things are done a little bit differently, right? So we've got a vinyl toilet here. It's done with fabric. And then if you were in STEM class, you could have made your seat that you made could have been done with like a toilet. You could have done that. Cardboard. And then we've got cigarettes that are 5 and 6 feet in size. So it's rather large, which kind of goes along with the whole notion with pop art to make things larger than they actually are. So what we're going to do, we're going to make some food. Okay, whether the type of food that you make is completely totally up to you. Okay, what I've had people do in the past is a couple people work together. Somebody makes an appetizer, somebody makes a main course, somebody makes a dessert. Okay, you get your own grade for whatever thing that you make, but it's kind of presented as one thing. With pop art, a lot of what we're dealing with is how things are presented. So presentation is big. So like with this piece here, they made Turkish delights, and it fits in an actual Turkish delight container. And we've got a bunch of little chocolates here where they fit sort of in this, the chocolate heart container, which you might still be able to get on clearance. But if you make something that's relatively small like this, you need to make several of them. This person made a dozen of them, and then they left some for me to use for examples. So they're very detailed, spend a lot of time on them. With your projects, we want everything to be made primarily with the clay. Okay, so we don't want to necessarily rely on the paint to get what it is that we want to show. So like with these, a person made cake pops. These have a lot of clay added onto the outside of them to create kind of a texture. They went through and painted them. That's fine. This one here is just a ball that they painted on. They relied on their paint to do that. We don't want to do that. Okay, so we want everything to be kind kind of relied on the texture of the actual clay. Now, like I said, presentation is a big part of this. So this hamburger that I have here was designed to be shown like this, to where the bun is slightly off of it. The onions and the cheese and the pickles are part of the bun. They don't separate. Whereas this one, they made it where everything comes apart as separate things. Okay? Or like with the White Castle here, where you've got a bun, you've got the burger, you've got the cheese, and you've got the other bun. So it all fits together, it all looks the same. This is a little bit easier to paint because you can actually hold the objects and you can kind of get to them. When things are kind of stuck together, it makes it, or can make it, a little bit difficult to do. So, and if you have a container of some sort, that has to work with it. So I've got this one here. It's kind of a Japanese style noodle soup thing, where it was designed to work with this bowl specifically. Okay, so they kind of measured out with the bowl and just rolled out a slab, and then added everything on top of it, so that when you look at it, when it sits, you don't know that there isn't anything underneath it. So it's kind of what we call trompe l'oeil, where you're kind of fooling the eye. So that's kind of where this works. You know, somebody last semester made a Happy Meal. They made the burger, they made the fries, they actually went and got a Happy Meal. Left the toy in it, used the wrappers, and had everything together, and it worked out really well. If you looked in the display case, there are a lot of donuts. Okay. Donuts are kind of a touchy subject, because if you make one and you do it really well, it can look really nice, like this one here. Okay, it's got frosting on top of it. It's got a lot of texture to it. It's actually hollow, so you know there's a lot to that. If you decide to make one and just make a loop and paint some chocolate on it and call it a day, you're not going to get that good of a grade. So you need to, if you make something that is a little bit simpler in concept, you need to make sure that it is done very well. Okay. Like I said, desserts, main courses, it does not matter. There's a big variety of things out here. And there's a lot of stuff that we'll talk about tomorrow in the construction aspect of it that comes into play. Now for your actual project, what we're working on today is you need to draw out and figure out what it is that you're going to do. So we need to have a front view, we need to have a side view, and then measurements and whatever else that you need to lay everything out. So I've got a front view, so this is a brat on a bun that's been kind of eaten. So I've got kind of the front view to see how it's going to look here. I've got a side view with kind of the shapes of it. The brat's actually going to be able to come out, so that way I can paint the grill marks on it and get the bun looking the way that it needs to. I'm going to make a handful of tater tots to sit next to it, so it's going to have all kinds of texture on that. But that's a secondary thing. The primary thing is the brat. So if you want to do something like when you make fries, that's fine. But you can't make just fries, because you can roll out a slab and cut them, and they're fries. It literally would take me like a minute to do. So you need to have something that's a little more complicated than that. All right. And then as far as how it's presented, we're going to work on this, build it now, and then it's going to be a couple weeks before we get to painting them. So we don't necessarily need those things now. But if you need to measure it or something like that with this, then find it over the weekend, and then we can start with that on Monday. Questions?